He's with Sidewinder, managing partner, and on the Mountain Pure Project team. We've done a lot of interviews in regards to this Jefferson County water and bottling plant, and I got in touch with Tiffany Lawrence, who set us up with Sean. So great to have you with us. Thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you guys all for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and happy to address any questions and obviously share information on the project we wish to develop in Jefferson County.
Excellent. And this is your first media interview?
It is. So,
how are you feeling right now?
I'm doing good so far. I mean, we just started, so we'll see.
So far, so good, right?
I mean, if you want to wrap it up right now, I'm totally good.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Great, great stuff. First and foremost, what is Sidewinder, and what is it that Sidewinder does?
Okay, well, Sidewinder is just a single-purpose LLC that we've created. Each development or each project we do as a standalone entity, and so this one was just created for the purpose of this project, this development in West Virginia.
Okay, and what is this project that you're developing here in West Virginia, and why in this location in Jefferson County?
So initially, we got involved in this project, I want to say, over 4 years ago. We were initially advising a family, the previous owner. They've got upside down on the project, and they were looking for some potential ways to create value and create growth with what they had. And through that relationship we had with the family, we started looking into, well, what are the options? What can you do with this from a development standpoint, if anything, and what's viable? And through that process, we ended up deciding to acquire the property from the previous owner. Spent the subsequent 3.5 years coming out every other week, sort of heads down to figure out what can we do with this old 3M site. It's got a lot of legacy issues. It had environmental issues that were subsequently remediated through DEP. And we came up with a solution, what we thought was a viable plan, which is a bottling facility. Given the water that was used from the source at Lake Louise, was ultimately grabbed on Turkey Run by 3M and Kodak. And we looked at this and said, okay, well, this is something that we think from just a development standpoint and a business standpoint makes sense, that we can get our arms around, and let's see how we can do it. And so a lot of it, we sort of kept our heads down, started meeting with the community, got more active in the community, and did a lot of the blocking and tackling up front to see, usually when you look at different projects, you go down a path and then you pivot.
Sure.
You go down another path and you pivot because you end up with a dead end somewhere. And so, our experience has been get a plan that you can actually do, and then start to reach out to the community and go through the process, knowing that you have something that isn't going to change. So I'd say good and bad. The bad is we developed an entire plan, and then we wish we would have spent more time engaged with the local community, because there's a lot of things that are being said about ourselves and the project that aren't necessarily true. But there's a lot of things, a lot of valid concerns that have come up from the local community, which is completely fair and justified, and that's why we're sort of addressing them. So we're a little bit more reactionary than we would have liked in hindsight, which is sort of how it always works these days.
Live and learn.
But we're happy to be here. We're active in the community. We own the property. We own 2 mobile home parks as well. We continue to look for opportunities in Jefferson County and in West Virginia. So it's an exciting place. We like the pro-business component. We like the work ethic of West Virginians. We like just the people, frankly, in general. So happy to be here.
I want to ask you in regards to the plant. You mentioned there are things being said, and people are, I guess, being creative in filling in the holes that you guys may have left by not communicating as well as you wished you would have. Is the water bottling plant the end use for this facility, or is this the first idea that eventually gets flipped into some other thing? For instance, one rumor is this will ultimately become a data processing center, and they need all the water for all the cooling that's needed for a data center. Is that a valid rumor, or is that just because we don't have anything else to talk about?
No, I think there's a lot of rumors that are going around. I mean, I think the plan that we put in place for basically a bottling facility, a beverage facility, we believe makes the most sense, has the greatest economic impact, and that's the project that we're leading with. It's not sort of here's an idea, but we really have another idea behind the curtain.
Sure.
No, I mean, this is really it. We think there's viability here. We think we've done economic impact study with John Deskins at WVU, so we know what the economic benefit is. And no, I think this is the path we're going to go down, and I think it's just now addressing a lot of the concerns that local people have, and a fair amount absolutely justified in any development.
Three of the major concerns that we've heard in the interviews that we've done: one, wells being affected by 1.7 millions of gallons of water being drawn each day from that water source. Another one is the toxic plume under the 3M plant. If it's destabilized, people are rightly concerned that they're going to be drinking toxic water. And three is the road system in and out. If there's that many trucks moving in and out of that area, those roads aren't built for that. Those are the three major concerns. Can you address those?
Sure. Why don't you start first with the 1.728 million gallons a day? That's I'd say a headline number that came out. It was more like a threshold, I'd say. And where that number originates from is we wanted to see how much water was actually in Lake Louise. What volume could you safely extract without causing any damage either downstream or to any neighboring wells? When we drilled the first well, there was so much upwell pressure that it almost tipped the rig. And so then you look at what type of pumps you have in the marketplace. There are no pumps that are commercially available to pump at the level that we did. So we then had to build a customized pump with Nagley's. They built it for us. And then you have to manage the discharge rate of how much water you put back into. It's not into Lake Louise; it went back into Turkey Run. Okay. So that's one of the misnomers that we've heard.
Yes, that you're feeding the water back into the lake.
In Lake Louise, it was 600 feet approximately downstream from where we drilled. Okay. So if there was a bigger well, a bigger pump that was even available, or you could customize build, we would have looked at doing this. Pump cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to build just to get this. And so what we came back with was a 1.728 million gallons a day. That was just sort of an inflection point. You could drill it, you could pump it that safely. It's not a matter of what we're looking to take. That's just more of a benchmark number that we provide to the community and that the engineers came back with.
What's the more realistic number you're looking to take?
It's going to be less, but I don't know the actual number. It'll be driven by the market. And to put it in perspective for yourselves and the listeners, 1.728 million gallons a day. If you use that for 16.9 ounce bottles, just your standard, bottle, like the bottled water you have right there. Not water in that, but
it's water with some flavor added.
Exactly. That comes out to about 440 million cases a year, which would make you one of the largest bottlers in the U.S. out of one location. That's just not feasible.
Okay.
I mean, you have Coke, Pepsi, different water companies with 10, 15, 20 locations across the U.S. because of distribution, the distance of distribution, trucking, what have you.
Right.
So it was more a number that just sort of gave us, okay, this number, we don't know yet where we're in it. It's just more, this is the number that we know that there's no negative impact downstream. So then you look at the neighboring, and another thing, a misnomer, a couple of things on us personally is, one, apparently I'm an agent for the Chinese government. That's not true. We've heard that. We're California billionaires. Absolutely not true. I wish we were billionaires, but that's not true at all. And that we fly in on a Learjet, not true. Come in commercial to Dulles and drive down. And through that also, just a little background on myself is I come from an ag family. I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, and I grew up in Colorado. So the idea that we would come into a community and impact commercial farms or just farms in general of our neighbors, that would be the worst business plan in the history of man. It doesn't work. So to alleviate that concern that people's wells will be drained or go dry, valid concern, anyone would have that concern, given what we're trying to do or what we'd like to do, is that we're establishing a trust with Charleston Community Bank. We're going to put $1 million in that, and that will go to, they'll be the trustee. Any well that's impacted will have a new well drilled, and we're going to pay for it. There'll be an application that goes through. The trustee, checks all the boxes, they release the money to whomever, whatever driller that landowner would like to do. With the consent of the local property owners, we'll put well monitoring devices on those as well. So that, we think, alleviates that one component of the concern, that no one's well is going to go dry.
How about the roads in and out of there for trucks?
The roads in and out, we looked at that extensively. We did do a traffic study, and the traffic study was approved by the state. So the state believes, based on the study that was done, that it can sustain truck traffic because it historically has through the 3M plant. There is a concern on, I believe it's 51 in Leetown Road, where the intersection is, that would be problematic, that flashing light. So there is going to be a full intersection with the left-hand turn lane coming in. The state has already required that, and funds have already been allocated for that. So there won't be any operations out of our facility until that is in, that intersection's in, and then also the truss will be set up, obviously. The criteria will be set up as well.
And the toxic plume that is concerning so many people.
Yeah, the toxic plume, through our engineering firm, through Triad and our environmental people, they've looked at that, and they don't see any, we'll continue to do more research on it. They don't see any issue with that based on the plume migration. The water source is upstream from the 3M plant as well, and it's about 1.25 mile distance away. And that water will be pumped from Lake Louise and via a permitted and approved through Department of Highways in conjunction with CTUB, a water line that goes right into the front door of the Gray Street where the plant is.
Bill?
Thanks, Sorry, Sean. That's a lot of information. I just threw at you guys. Told you it's my first time.
Yeah, you're doing fine. No, it's all good information. Yes. Thanks, Sean. Karst topography is notoriously difficult to predict water migration, water movement, and availability because it's in pockets, unlike sandstone and shale and the other rocks. So it's notoriously difficult. Three issues that I see related to this, and I hope there's some definitive measurements, is one, the withdrawal, like I think you've already made that. Recirculation, you addressed that a little bit in detail, but the recharge, to me, is the real issue. Have you looked at recharge? Let me give one other caveat on that, and I refer this frequently. You need a benchmark to compare recharge to. This area had a phenomenal drought in 2001, 2002, which gave us an indicator of how much the wells could suffer from drought before they start going dry. That information is available. Have you used any measurement? Have you done any studies at all to look at the recharge?
That's a great question, and it's a very valid question as well. I know, as you guys know, that our hearing, which was supposed to be tonight, got moved to February.
Okay.
And we're actually very happy with that. I think it gives us and the community more time to interact and to address some of the questions you have. Yeah. We plan on having Nick Wolf from Triad, who did a lot of the testing that you're referring to, because he's really our technical expert. So I have rough numbers to address some of what you're saying, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole and be incorrect. But yes, it's been looked at, and I think that's in the coming weeks and prior to the February hearing, we're going to be doing more community outreach specifically to this component and having Nick Wolf and the technical team a part of it, because especially in this area and the amount of people who have wells, I mean, you guys have a very deep understanding of this from a technical standpoint.
And everybody talks about the quantity, but the quality is being impacted by the quantity, especially not in the short term, but in the long term. Because if you do start developing a cone of depression, it doesn't make much difference if you upstream, downstream, to the side. If you make a sufficient cone of depression, it's going to impact the quality by pulling in the toxicity from under the 3M plant. So I think the real key to this is the stability that can be preserved by the recharge. So I would hope that definitive numbers would be given for the recharge that would put a lot of these concerns at rest. So.
I actually took a note of this. It's very valid, and I'll make sure if it hasn't been looked at, I'll make sure it has. I believe it has. I just don't want to talk out of turn just because my background's finance and real estate development. So some of the technical part, we know what we know, and we know what we don't know, which I don't know a lot. So we usually will go out and we'll get the experts to help weigh in on this.
And we have a couple of examples in Berkeley County that we thought we had the answers to, and then the numbers started fooling us and realized there was a recirculation that we had not really understood. So the withdrawal was actually more significant than we thought if you took out the recirculation aspect. So this is, to me, is a real key to the question.
Yeah, and I do know I can speak just briefly on I know we did, the studies came on a 50-year and 100-year drought basis as it relates to recharge. Yeah. The recharge at 1.728, I believe, was almost instantaneous. In a matter of like a couple seconds.
Sure. Yeah.
But to your question, which is a little more technical, I completely I understand what you're saying, and I took notation of it, and we'll make sure that we get that addressed, prior to. I believe we're going to look at doing some town halls and some different things, more of a showcase with all the expertise in the core space versus just doing a hearing, coming, and you could. The community will be able to come and ask the technical questions for those like yourself who has a technical knowledge, and then other people have questions of what else we're doing to the community, or what other type of impacts, and just the project in general. We'll be happy to answer those. That's why I think this delay is actually a positive.
I agree with you very much. So.
Matt Miller.
Sean, you mentioned the $1 million community trust for wells that might need to be, re-drilled.
Yes.
I believe I've heard some complaints through this program and listening of those that say it's only for a select few very close to the plant, and this could potentially impact others maybe further away. Is there a limited space? How do you kind of determine how far out you might go from the plant to those that may say, hey, my well's being affected?
So far, we've actually identified, I believe it's about 44 homes or property owners that would be potentially affected, which is more than when you look at a major producer and where the impact area that's done. This far exceeds what is typically done according to our engineers at Triad. But we're not opposed to looking. We're evaluating everything, but we do want to make sure that it's got to. A certain extent, right? I mean, it's got to be not 30 miles away for obvious reasons, but yes, we want to make sure that anyone who's in the adjacent properties, anyone who's close to a certain distance on both, whether it's the 3M plant or on out of Lake Louise, because you're right. I have heard the number that was within 1,000 feet from the source, which was Lake Louise, which would not necessarily reach people around the property itself, the 3M plant. So we're working to adjust that as well.
But if I can do your question, that's going to depend. If a cone of depression develops, that would dictate how far the impact would be. And these are questions that can be modeled if you have the right data.
Yes, and that's absolutely true. I mean, the idea is the number where it comes from, just to give you an idea, is we took the 44 homes, assumed that every single one needed a full well reshot, which is not going to be the case. I mean, just statistical-wise, it's not going to be the case. And the average well, I think, was between $15,000 and $20,000. So we said, okay, let's start with $1 million, assuming that. Now, as you mentioned, the depression, like you move that out, then obviously that fund will increase. And as you get closer to production, actually coming online, that you'll end up at that final number of what it needs to be that will address the community's concerns. So I think for us right now, it's just taking the concerns in, figuring out how we address those. There is time between obviously the concept plan and then a site plan approval, and then we've got to build it and become operational. So during that entire process, you're tightening up everything along the ways from a development standpoint and from a community benefit standpoint as well.
Sean, I want to thank you very much for your time this morning. I hope we can have you back again as this process continues.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, if you're happy to have me back, I guess I did okay. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
You did a great job.
Thank you, and happy holidays to everyone.
To you as well. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
It is 9:57. We're back with the final minute right after this.